Hi, everyone. This is Tracy Jones at Tremendous Leadership, and it is one of my favorite times of the year. Time to release a new author from the Tremendous Leadership author fold. Today, our guest is first-time author Kim Nash. Kim, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And this is the time when we get to chat with the authors about their book, what the purpose of is writing it, who should read it, and to connect you with them because Kim is a tremendous resource and you need to hear a little bit about her business. So, Kim came to me the end of last year, the very beginning of this past year, and we have been on a writing journey together monthly for the past at least 12 months. Is that right, Kim?
That's correct. Yes.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about the writing journey. And Kim, now we are ready to release. Today, you're getting the email because Kim's book, Burn the Plow, A Story of Surrender, is out on Amazon and Tremendous Leadership. And Kim, I am so excited for our readers to get this book and for the other people out there. Kim is also become a friend of mine. She's in South Central PA. We run in a lot of the same circles. And when I read her manuscript as we were working through it, why it so deeply resonated with me is it's all about not only burning the plow and surrendering to God, but also for that greater, highest calling, which is the entrepreneur's journey. So as somebody that left corporate America 14 years ago, and now living the life that I live now, where I'm most free to serve in my highest form, I know this is the dream of so many people out there and our Tremendous Leadership fans. So Kim, tell us about why you wrote the book.
Absolutely. So this was not something that was on my radar screen at all. I always would prefer to speak to people and to do public speaking, but writing was not on my radar screen. And I struggled in college to write papers. And so when I was sitting in church that one weekend and listened to that series about being greater, I just kept feeling this nudge, like, you need to write a book. And I'm like, that's totally outside of my comfort zone. But then, that's what God does. He's not going to let us stay in our comfort zones at all. So getting outside of our comfort zone. And actually, when I first started thinking about writing a book, I actually had a whole different topic in mind. And I kind of chewed on that for a couple years, and it just didn't feel right. And so then when I started seeing how God was changing my career, I remember walking along the beach one day, because if you read the book, you'll know that that's my favorite place to be with God. As I'm walking along the beach, and it just hit me that this was supposed to be my book about my journey, and that God was going to use this in some way, and I don't know how, but God is going to use this to be an inspiration to other people, to just to speak to whoever needs it. And so that's what prompted me. And I remember not long after that sitting down, and 10 topic items came to my mind about things that I learned, and that became the 10 chapters of the book.
I love it. So tell us a little bit about the overarching, what is the book about? What's the message of the book?
Yes. The message is that we are all on a journey in life. And my journey doesn't look like anybody else's journey. My journey is what God has created me to do. And each one of us have that. Unfortunately, a lot of times we go through life and we haven't figured that out yet, or we haven't listened to God, and you're not really sure where we're at. So how do we do that? How do we get back on track? The other thing too, that as I look at this and I think about this, is so many times we compare our journeys to other people's journeys, and we have to stop doing that. I think if there's one chapter in the book that really hits me hard, is that comparison chapter. That I have my own journey. God has put me on a journey. It's my journey, and I should not be comparing to anybody else. And so I think that we all need to recognize that we are all different. God has created us uniquely, and we need to embrace that and say, congratulations on your journey. My journey is different, and I am here for God's purpose. And in order for me to find that purpose, I have to surrender. I have to surrender to God's will. And until I did that, I wasn't free. I just felt, you feel that jealousy, you feel all of those things. But when you surrender and just say, here I am, God, do whatever it is that you want to do, you're just free. And so I'm hoping that will inspire people to do those two things, to say, my journey is not someone else's, and I just need to surrender.
Right. And you use a lot of personal, professional,
Mhm.
and biblical examples that as we're going through this struggle, and I love that
Right.
you talked about the waiting period as, the time between the calling and the actual, I was watching a special on Paul the Apostle last night from when he got zapped to when he came to ministry that, you're in this time where you're being seasoned. And I love that you have a lot of biblical examples in there that it's not just us, it's Moses, it's Abram and
Sure.
Abraham, it's Noah, it's
Mhm.
everybody. All
Right.
God's greats have been through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the key, that God does not use qualified people, because then okay, that's the expectation. But taking those individuals and saying, yeah, I'm not qualified. I'm not qualified to write a book. I knew nothing about writing a book. I had no idea where to even start. And so God uses unqualified people, and he will always, always equip you with the people, or the resources that you need. He will never leave you hanging dry. So when you feel like, oh, I can't do this, you're not on your own. God is there. And so as we see those examples of all of the unqualified people in the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, God never, ever left them down. He always provided what they needed. God provided me with what I needed to write this book, because this clearly wasn't me. This was God.
That's beautiful. And what I love most about the book is even though you knew, you heard the voice, you kept waiting, like, when's it going to happen? And then you would kind of go back and then you go forward. And then COVID happened, right? As you hung out
Yeah.
your shingle and you're like, okay, great God. But I love it's the journey of all of us. It's the faith
Mhm.
walk.
Sure.
And I love that you were very clear and honest about until, and I'm not going to give a spoiler for the book, God purified you down until you got the root cause of what were you holding on to?
Mhm.
What was that final thing? And you identify it in
Yep.
one of the chapters before you could finally say, I surrender all. And God was able to say, now that you dropped all your junk, let's go
Yep.
on this together. So that's
Yep.
for our listeners out there. We've all been there. And if you're like, I keep waiting for it to happen, Tracy, when's it going to happen? Kim's book is beautiful in that, God will take you
Yep.
through, but he's going to
Yep.
make you be honest with yourself and him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's a waiting period. I'm not the most patient person in the world, but this was
That's why
a
I liked
almost
it.
this was almost a 10-year journey.
Mm.
And so when I look back on that, and it's just, when we don't wait for God, and we try to go ahead of ourselves, things get messed up. Our journey is not a straight line. It is just back and forth, and we have to be prepared for that. We have to be prepared for that. But in the end, it's all going to be God's story. It's going to be there.
Beautiful. Okay, so we talked about the message. Who do you think should read this book? And I know you hit a lot of that, but who would you really love, or who should have this in a book club, or have you speak at a women's conference? Where will your message best resonate?
I tried as I wrote the book, I just wanted to write it to anybody that really is like, you know what, I just don't know what my journey is. I don't know where I'm headed, or even I'm too messed up. God can't use me. I have such a horrible past and God can't use me. And that's not true. And it's really, I think, no matter where you are in your journey, I think this book can help you, whether you're going straight, and you know what, there's going to come a detour at some point, and you're going to want to be prepared for that detour. Or if you're like, man, I've been going down the wrong path for so long, I'm too far. I'm too far. No, you're never too far. You're never too far. So no matter where you are on your journey, I think this book will speak to you at some place.
I hear you. I love it. And even though I am kind of on the outside of it, my journey was 14 years. So it was a joy to read Kim's and understand now I can look at it. But boy, I remember I remember myself in each of those chapters. I could have definitely used a book like this. Kim, what are your aspirations next for the book now that it's being published and
Sure.
today is launch day?
Sure. So a lot of times, people think, okay, well, now I published the book, and I really, as I've been thinking about this, I'm thinking about I this is the beginning of the next journey. It's not, it's yes, I wrote the book, it's being published now, but the next journey is about to start. And I'm going to take those lessons that I learned and I wrote in the book and say, okay, God, the book is here. You inspired me to do this. You called me to do this. I've done it. And so what's next, God? And again, it's a surrender to God. I would love to go out and sit with people. And one of my passions is I love to just talk to people, have coffee with people, sit down and just talk about their journey. And so I just don't know where God's going to lead this book and who's going to read it. My prayer is right now that it ends up in the hands of those that need to read it.
Mm.
That's what I've been praying. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that's 20 people or 2,000 people, but that it ends up where God needs that book to be. And then when he calls me to the next step, I am prepared and ready to go.
Well, we know that that will happen because we know he didn't bring you this far to have it settle at that.
Sure.
Kim, how do people get in touch with you?
Sure. So the best way that you can reach out to me is through my email. And that is Kim at UTHRIV dot or two. I'm sorry, I messed up. Let me try again.
Okay. We'll
Kim.
have it in the notes too. So.
Okay. Kim at UTHRIV, the number 2.com. So youthrive2.com.
Excellent. Now that you can add accomplished author to your list of wonderful titles and you reference them in the book, Kim, tell our listeners out there what you do in your professional vocation in the event they would need you for that as well.
Sure. So great. So as I had a 30-year plus experience in HR, I worked in companies, did HR consulting, where I really felt my passion was and where I really felt God's calling for me is to do training and development. And so I love to go out to companies and work with their managers, their supervisors, their leaders on being successful, setting people up for success, helping them along their professional journey as well to be the best that they can be. And so that's where I've been spending my time developing, whether it's HR professionals, managers, leaders, and organizations. And I just love to do that.
I love that. And I love how you wove that professional calling throughout the entity of the book from when you started all the way to the end and where you are now. So beautiful story of burning the plow and finally surrendering and how that all got started. And we're so excited to see you cross the finish line, Kim.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you, Tracy, for all that you did for me. Like I said, you have been my North Star to help me stay on track and to make this happen. And I couldn't have done it without you. So
Well,
thank you so much.
it's an honor. You bless me in going through this process. Thank you for trusting us with bringing this to life. And to our listeners out there, you be sure and you pick up a copy, share it with your, don't just pick up a copy, pick up 10 copies because you're going to want to share it with book clubs, with church groups, give it to people, and especially read it because it's just a beautiful thing that it ain't over until our last breath is here. And so
That's
if you
right.
are looking to reinvent yourself or God's putting the nudge in you, read Kim's book. She has some wonderful outlines, some beautiful verses, some fabulous songs that she references that can be wonderful resources, and the advocacy of the Holy Spirit. Boy, you can't go wrong. So thanks again, Kim, for everything. And to our
Thank you.
listeners out there, you are so welcome. Be sure and get that book. And thank you so much for being a tremendous part of our family. Remember, you're going to be the same person 5 years from now, except for two things: the people you meet and the books you read. So you're about to be transformed, folks. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.